This is a behavior support plan for Peter Smith by Carol Lucas. Currently, Peter is engaging in self-stimulatory behavior of spitting and manipulating his spit. Peter was referred for behavioral services due to the fact that past behavioral interventions have helped reduce Peter's stereotypic behaviors. Some more useful information is that Peter communicates with mostly gestures and by leading people to what he wants or needs. His receptive language ability is adequate. He is able to follow various one-step instructions with minimal or less intrusive prompts from others. Peter does have deficits in his imitation abilities and ability to stay on task during activities. During sessions, Peter works on many functional living skills such as making his bed, sorting laundry, sorting dishes, brushing his teeth, showering, and making sandwiches. Some potential reinforcers for Peter include social reinforcers such as chase with dad, watching movies with the family, and squeezes. Edible or tangible reinforcers include Skittles, chocolate wafers, and iPad. Sensory reinforcers include putty or Play-Doh, Slinkies, and finger paint. Target behavior is manipulating spit and is defined as any incident or attempt in which Peter spits on a body part or an item in the environment or puts his fingers in his mouth and then proceeds to manipulate the spit with his fingers. Hypothesis of function. When Peter is in a setting where he is alone, Peter is likely to engage in manipulating spit because in the past these behaviors resulted in automatic reinforcement. A functional analysis was performed when Peter was first referred for services in order to determine the function of the behavior. Peter engaged in manipulating spit behavior an average of 91% of intervals recorded during the alone condition. Therefore, the conclusion is that the behavior is maintained by automatic reinforcement. According to the functional assessment interview, parents reported that Peter will often engage manipulating spit when he is alone or enjoying leisurely activities such as watching TV or listening to music. Staff reported that manipulating spit occurrence is higher while working on leisure activities like independent play or on-task activities such as sorting laundry and dishes. Goals of treatment. The goal is to reduce the occurrences of manipulating spit behavior. During baseline, Peter engaged in manipulating spit an average of 92% of intervals recorded during sessions. The short-term goal is that Peter will engage in manipulating spit an average of 50% of intervals recorded during sessions across 2 consecutive weeks. This should be completed by January 28, 2016. The long-term goal is that Peter will engage in manipulating spit 0% of intervals recorded during sessions across 2 consecutive weeks. This long-term goal is ideally supposed to be met by February 28, 2016. We will be using partial interval recording for the spit manipulation. How you will do this is you will put an X in each interval box if the target behavior occurred at any point during the interval. Record a 0 in each interval box if the target behavior did not occur. We are using intervals of 5 minutes in duration. And as you can see with this example, there are a number of X's and a number of zeros that were filled for the 3-hour session. So then in order to determine the percent of intervals in which the behavior occurred, you're going to do the number of intervals occurred, so the X's, over the number of intervals observed, so overall the number total of boxes. So in this example, it was 52% of intervals recorded. Now let's talk about some strategies for preventing problem behaviors or antecedent manipulations. Modification of establishing operation. Limit Peter's fluid intake 30 minutes before the activity that were specified to have higher rates of occurrence of the target behavior. For example, those leisure activities and those on-task activities like sorting laundry and sorting dishes or silverware. Limiting Peter's fluid intake will alter the effectiveness of the spit to serve as a reinforcer, because as a result, Peter will not be able to produce ample amounts of saliva. If Peter mans for a drink 30 minutes before or during an on-task or leisure activity, You should use the verbal contingency, first blank, then drink. After using that first then language, please direct him back to the task at hand. Strategies for encouraging appropriate behaviors. Appropriate and preferred alternatives for manipulating spit include potty, Play-Doh, slime, and flubber. During leisure activities, keep preferred items near Peter within arm's length away. That can be an alternative for manipulating spit. These alternative items are not identical to spit, but they have similar characteristics such as being moist and easy to manipulate with his fingers. Whenever Peter manipulates these appropriate items, reinforce this behavior with praise and/or preferred edibles. Now let's move on to strategies for responding to problem behaviors. We are going to look at differential reinforcement of other behavior, a DRO procedure, and positive practice over correction, which is a punishment procedure. First, let's go over the DRO procedure. Differential reinforcement of other behavior delivers a reinforcer whenever the problem target behavior does not occur for a specific time interval. Therefore, reinforcement is available contingent upon the absence of the behavior. So why a DRO? Peter's spit manipulation behavior was occurring at a high rate, an average of 92% during baseline. Peter's repertoire is limited. Specifically, he has a deficit in imitation skills. Therefore, teaching incompatible behaviors would be more timely. Peter's spit is readily accessible, and finding an alternative item or behavior that will give the same sensory input and be as readily accessible is hard to find. In the end, DRO would be more effective in reducing the target behavior in a timely manner compared to other differential reinforcement procedures. What do you need? Staff will need an interval timer, data collection sheet, and a pencil. How does it work? We will be using a fixed interval DRO. First, you will set the interval timer to a specific time and start the timer. If the target behavior does not occur in the specified time at all by the end of the specified interval, give Peter specific praise, such as saying, "Nice job having dry hands," "Yay, your hands are clean," or phrases such as that, and a preferred edible. If the target behavior occurs during the interval specified, immediately block the target behavior, do not say anything, and minimize your eye contact. Then proceed with the positive practice over correction procedure, which we will go over the details later. Once the positive practice over correction procedure is completed, reset the interval. If another maladaptive behavior such as yelling, screaming, or crying occurs at the end of the interval, you do not want to reinforce this. Therefore, you just ignore that behavior and you restart the interval. Now let's take a look at a video demonstration of what to do if the specific target behavior does not occur during the interval.
Let's sort. Go ahead. There we go. Perfect. Good job. Keep it up. Good work. Nice job having nice, clean hands. They're nice and dry. Good job.
As you can see, the therapist and Peter were working on utensil sorting, and Peter did not engage in any spit manipulation during that entire interval. Therefore, he was giving specific praise for having dry and or clean hands, and it was also paired with an edible reinforcer. Now let's look at a video demonstration of what to do if the behavior does occur during the interval that is specified.
Let's sort. Good. Nice job. Well done.
As you can see, Peter engaged in the spitting behavior, and the therapist immediately blocked the response by isolating his hands so he couldn't manipulate him with his fingers. This is the extinction process of the DRO, in which you are blocking the response from occurring. Now let's talk about thinning the schedule of reinforcement. The fixed interval will increase contingent upon Peter's progress. After baseline is completed, we will start with a fixed interval schedule of 1 minute. Once Peter reduces to 50% of intervals recorded, we will introduce a fixed interval of 3 minutes. Once he reaches 30% of intervals recorded, we will increase it to a fixed interval of 5 minutes. Once he reduces to 10% of the intervals recorded, we will use a fixed interval of 10 minutes. Why fixed interval DRO? Fixed interval DRO has more research to support that is more effective versus procedures such as momentary DRO. After the long-term goal is met, where Peter has 0% of intervals recorded for 2 consecutive weeks, we can move into a variable interval schedule of reinforcement that is 15 minutes. This is the DRO data recording sheet, in which you will list the fixed interval that you are currently at, so 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes. And you will also list the time that you are doing the interval, and then whether or not the target behavior occurred. So if the target behavior occurs, you will put a minus. If the target behavior does not occur, you will put a plus. Here is an example of what it would look like if it were to be filled out. Next, we will move on to our positive practice overcorrection procedure. What is it? Positive practice overcorrection requires the individual to repeatedly perform an appropriate or correct form of the behavior, or a behavior that is incompatible with the target behavior for a specific duration or for specified number of responses. Why are we using positive practice overcorrection? It encompasses a teaching component in which an appropriate or alternative behavior is being taught. And what do you need for this particular overcorrection procedure? You need just a sink and soap. How does it work? If the target behavior occurs, spit manipulation, immediately stop the response by physically blocking Peter from manipulating his spit, as you saw in the previous video. 2, in a neutral, unemotional tone of voice, explain to Peter why he misbehaved and provide a brief explanation for why the behavior needs to be corrected. The dialogue to use is, do not play with your spit. It is not healthy for you and others. 3, place the demand for Peter to go wash his hands. In other words, you say, go wash your hands, in a neutral, unemotional tone of voice again. 4, continue to block any occurrences of spit manipulation when transitioning to go wash hands, if applicable. Next, we'll look at a video in which are the beginning steps of the overcorrection procedure.
Let's sort. Good. Nice job. Well done. We do not spit. It is unhealthy for you and others. Go wash your hands.
Next, let's look at a demonstration of a video where Peter tries to manipulate his spit while transitioning to go wash his hands. In this case, the therapist would need to block any occurrences of manipulating spit while in transition to go wash hands.
Wash hands.
The next step is to have Peter wash his hands for a total of 20 seconds. He must complete each of the following steps accurately, and staff should prompt as needed for this procedure. The steps include turning on water, pump soap, wet hands, rub hands, rinse soap, turn off water, dry top and palms of the hands. It is important that you also provide specific praise for independently complying with demands placed during the positive practice procedure. For example, complying with demands and any of the steps that are independent. You want to praise him for this, but not use a lot of attention or be overly excited about the independence of completing this step. But it's also still a teaching opportunity to teach him that correct behavior. So you do want to give praise and reinforcement for correctly completing it. Next, you will see a video of the therapist and Peter completing the washing hands portion of the positive practice overcorrection procedure.
Let's wash hands. Good turning on water. Very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Good rinsing. All right. Let's go back to sorting silverware.
As you can see, the therapist made sure that Peter washed his hands for a total of 20 seconds in duration, and she also provided specific praise for independently completing the steps of hand washing. And last, the seventh step includes placing the demand to go back to the task that was at hand or previously being worked on. Some recommendations. Staff and family should continue to monitor Peter's stereotypic behaviors. If manipulating spit occurs again in the future, family and staff should take the same reactive and proactive procedures discussed above in the support plan and video. The positive practice overcorrection should remain in place with a continuous schedule, especially since it is important that Peter understands the importance of washing his hands after manipulating his spit. The family and staff should continue this overcorrection procedure using a continuous schedule for health and safety reasons. While Peter does not have a history of aggression or self-injurious behaviors, there is a crisis intervention plan put in place in case he does engage in these behaviors during our intervention that we've developed. So if Peter engages in aggression, which can be defined as flinging spit at staff or others, hitting others, or kicking others, block the responses and redirect Peter to another area in the room to calm down. For example, go sit on the bed, sit on the chair. If Peter is calm, in other words, no maladaptive behaviors have occurred for at least 5 seconds, continue with the reactive strategy listed above. If Peter engages in self-injurious behaviors, which may be defined as hitting himself, biting himself, hitting his head against items, redirect Peter to another area in the room to calm down. So go sit on the bed, sit in the chair, somewhere safe. If Peter is calm with no maladaptive behaviors for 5 seconds, continue with the reactive strategy listed above. And that is everything regarding Peter's behavior support plan and reducing his manipulating spit behaviors. So let me know if you have any questions about the support plan or have any questions on how to implement any of the procedures. Thank you.